A high-value target doesn't vanish by accident. When the objective sits at the heart of a defended capital, you don't send an army, you build a theater of deception and make the whole world look the wrong way. In this scenario, the United States launches a tightly choreographed operation to seize Venezuela's president in a single night. No declarations of war. No armored columns rolling over the border, just stealth jets, carrier groups, covert assets, and Tier 1 operators, moving in the shadows while global attention is locked on the loudest explosions and the biggest ships. For months before the raid, planners inside the Pentagon and intelligence agencies had been shaping the battlefield. Publicly, Washington framed its moves as an anti-narco and counter-terrorism campaign aimed at powerful drug networks and corrupt officials. Privately, the mission's real focus was much narrower: one man at the apex of power, whose removal could flip the entire political map of the region. A layered naval presence tightened around Venezuela's coastline carrier strike groups, amphibious launch F-35s, surface combatants and submarines patrolling silently below. Long-range surveillance aircraft and drones built a constant picture of radar emissions, troop movements, and the daily rhythm of the capital. Official statements emphasized maritime security and regional stability, carefully avoiding any talk of regime change, while behind closed doors analysts watched for a small, rare window when the president would be in a fixed, predictable, and relatively vulnerable location. That window finally opened in the dead of night, at exactly 2 a.m. local time, while most of Caracas slept. The first phase of the strike began. High above Venezuelan airspace, stealth aircraft were already in motion, having slipped in under strict emissions control. Their signatures blended into the noise of a busy regional sky. Venezuela's air defense network, built with foreign assistance, combined long-range surface-to-air missile systems, mobile batteries, and overlapping radar coverage intended to deny access to hostile aircraft, rather than risk legacy fourth-generation jets against this wall of defenses. American planners relied on low observable platforms designed to survive in contested airspace. Their opening task was not to carpet bomb cities, but to blind and confuse the very systems that might threaten the operation. Precision strikes and electronic attacks hit selected radar sites, communications hubs, and air defense command nodes. Radar screens went dark, data links faltered, and operators on the ground lost the coherent picture they needed to mount a unified response. Almost simultaneously, more visible attacks slammed into key air bases, ammunition depots, and headquarters compounds. Hangars burned, runways were cratered, and command facilities shook under the impact of nighttime explosions. Sirens wailed, emergency lights flickered on, and the entire Venezuelan chain of command pivoted to defend what looked like the opening salvo of a full-scale invasion. That chaos was the curtain. While TV anchors replayed footage of distant fireballs and social media, flooded with images of burning bases, almost nobody noticed the low-flying helicopters threading their way along the dark edges of the city. Beneath the radar horizon, a formation of special operations helicopters flew nap of the earth, hugging valleys, rivers, and the fractured silhouette of the urban sprawl. Their routes had been rehearsed again and again in simulators and on mock-up ranges, built to mirror the streets and compounds of Caracas. Every rooftop, every turn, every open lot burned into muscle memory. On board were Tier 1 operators from an elite American unit trained explicitly for hostage rescue and high-value target missions. In the weeks before the raid, They had drilled on a full-scale replica of the target compound, complete with door placements, stairwells, likely fields of fire, and even mock security routines. Timing was everything. The helicopters approached the city at the exact moment new. Waves of airstrikes hit outer military installations, so the thunder of jets and the rumble of detonations masked the sound of rotors. To those few residents who did hear low engines in the dark, it was just another echo in a night already filled with violence. The objective was a fortified presidential safe facility, part residence, part bunker, ringed with multiple layers of security, regular troops, police units, and an inner ring of loyal guards formed its defensive shell, supported by cameras, locked gates, and hardened doors meant to delay any assault long enough for reinforcements to arrive. Instead of testing those defenses head-on, the raiders hit them all at once. Multiple helicopters flared into position, some landing in nearby open areas, others hovering just long enough for ropes to drop operators onto roofs, balconies, and courtyards. Entry teams split in precise fashion, each stack assigned specific doors, stairwells, and sectors to clear, while blocking elements moved to cut off possible escape routes and choke points. The silence collapsed in seconds. Flashbang grenades erupted at choke points, stairwells, and entryways, stunning defenders with blinding light and deafening concussion. Breaching charges blew hinges and locks apart before guards could form firing lines. Those who reacted found disciplined operators already inside, moving with practiced speed from room to room, clearing hallways and intersections in a controlled flow, even with months of intelligence. A high-value target inside a complex building is not a fixed object. Panic, instinct, and escape drills can change everything in an instant. That is why the operation leaned heavily on insiders, close to the presidential circle, who had quietly provided details about preferred bedrooms, offices, and panic rooms. As the teams pushed deeper, they worked from a prioritized list of locations, hitting probable safe rooms with specialized breaching tools, mechanical devices, cutting equipment, and, if necessary, small precision charges designed to punch through reinforced doors without collapsing the entire structure. The last barrier came down in an explosion of splinters and noise. Operators flooded the room, weapons trained on designated sectors. Commands shouted in clear, simple language. Stun devices kept bodyguards and bystanders disoriented. The president and his spouse, jolted from sleep into a blinding storm of light, sound, and armed figures, had no time to reach hidden weapons, activate escape tunnels, or trigger any scorched earth protocol. Within moments, they were on the ground, restrained, searched, and positively identified, using portable biometric gear carried in with the assault force. Other elements in the building began a rapid search for critical documents, electronics, and data drives that could shape the next phase of policy and operations. Outside perimeter, teams maintained a tight defensive ring around the compound, ready to blunt any hasty counterattack by local security forces. Overhead, armed escort aircraft orbited at a distance, prepared to neutralize approaching vehicles or armored units with pinpoint fire if necessary. The extraction clock was already running. Every second spent on the ground increased the chance that surviving elements of the Venezuelan military could regroup and attempt to interfere. Once confirmation was complete and the detainees were secured, the assault teams began a carefully choreographed withdrawal. The president and his spouse were moved under heavy guard from the interior of the building to the waiting helicopters, shielded from stray fire and prying eyes by human and mechanical barriers. Smoke, darkness, and the lingering confusion of the wider strikes helped obscure their movement. Within minutes, the aircraft were lifting away from the city. Noses pointed toward the relative safety of international airspace, while stealth jets and electronic warfare platforms extended a protective shield over their escape corridor. Beyond the coastline, American air and sea power formed the outer ring of the operation. Carrier-based fighters and amphibious launched F-35 billions stood ready to reinforce the skies if Venezuelan jets attempted to scramble. Surface warships and submarines monitored for missile launches or sudden naval movements, prepared to intercept any threat aimed at the task force or the extraction route. Tankers loitered in preset orbits, ensuring that protecting fighters never lacked the fuel to stay on station as long as needed. Once the helicopters crossed out of Venezuelan airspace, the tempo shifted from frantic minutes to controlled hours. They headed toward a secure staging point, either a large deck amphibious ship configured as a floating processing hub or an isolated regional airbase under firm American control. On arrival, the detainees were transferred from the custody of the assault force to a joint military and interagency team. Medical staff documented their condition. Legal and security officials prepared the framework for detention and interrogation, and intelligence officers began sifting through the captured data. Only then, when the principal risk had passed and the key players were already behind walls and wire, did the outside world start to receive confirmation of what had happened. Fragmentary reports of explosions, power outages, and missing motorcades crystallized into a stunning announcement. The Venezuelan president had been removed from his palace and was now in foreign hands. This kind of operation shows why modern powers invest so heavily in stealth, precision, surveillance, and elite special operations forces. Traditional mass invasions are costly, bloody, and politically explosive. A surgical extraction uses misdirection, speed, and technological superiority to achieve strategic aims in a single night, removing a regime figurehead while minimizing collateral damage and avoiding a drawn-out occupation. From the first naval deployment to the final helicopter touchdown on a secure deck, every link in the chain has to hold intelligence, deception, suppression of defenses, insertion, capture, and extraction. When they all work together, an entire government can be decapitated before dawn, leaving the global audience stunned and scrambling to understand how the balance of power shifted so fast. If you want more cinematic, deeply explained breakdowns of modern warfare strategy and high-risk special operations like this, make sure you subscribe to Forcestrategy, turn on all notifications, and never miss the next mission debrief.